Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filter and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, serial tech entrepreneur who's launched 30 companies, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. And I turned that roller coaster override into my book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is where I teach you how to turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software played a defining role in every win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We're a custom software engineering firm with resources throughout the US and Latin America. We help scale existing engineering teams with our talent. And today we are joined by Allan Leinwand, who is the CTO of a company called Webflow, who's had a long, great career of being an engineer, being a multi-time CTO. Allan, welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
If you would, walk our listeners through the journey of your career and what led you to your current role.
Yeah, I started my career early here in Silicon Valley at Hewlett-Packard, where I learned sort of the basics of building out computer networks. I went over to Cisco Systems when it was still a pretty young company. Spent a number of years at Cisco building internets and internet technologies sort of across the globe. And then I kind of got the startup itch. So I did a startup back in the late 90s, took it public. I was a VC for a while because I wanted to learn that side of the house. But then I felt like I had to get back into building something. So I've been very fortunate to work at the most senior technology levels at some really amazing companies like Zynga, ServiceNow, Slack, Shopify, and now here at Webflow. It's really been fun building and scaling engineering teams globally. And, here at Webflow, I lead our engineering and security teams. And it's just a really fun place to be. The world of technology is ever evolving and we continue to change. And it's always fun to be sort of at the brink of that change.
Never a dull moment. Man, you've definitely hit a lot of the big names throughout Silicon Valley in your career.
I've definitely got some great opportunities and hopefully made the best of them.
Well, so Allan, tell us more about Webflow.
Yeah, sure. Webflow is a website experience platform company that basically means we help people build, design, deploy, and operate websites. We build full stack websites and we allow people to design visually. We have customers like the New York Times and Dropbox, and we're really allowing people to build their presence on the web. And we do it for millions of websites, and it's really a very fast growing industry.
When does, from a website building perspective, when does somebody choose to build it on their own or versus like a WP engine, WordPress template, or use a company like Webflow? What are the typical factors there when companies are making that type of choice?
You're right. There's a lot of different ways to build websites. If you're building like a boring static website, go do it on GoDaddy or Squarespace or something like that, or Wix. If you're trying to do something that's much more dynamic, much more visually designed, much more has optimization, A/B testing, personalization, has analytics built in, you're going to do it on a platform like Webflow. So we really see ourselves as sort of hitting that market of people that really want websites for conversion. They want their website to be more than, a restaurant menu. They want it to be something that drives their business. It's their marketing home. And they're really looking for strong SEO, strong, you might even say AEO in these days of AI. And we want people to be thinking about Webflow in that space. I think when you think about the WordPress generation, that's like generation past. And when you think about what's going forward, it's really about the people that are building on Webflow.
So you mentioned AEO with,
Yes.
getting on the results of the AI LLMs out there. Have you guys cracked that code on how to do that? Because there's, a lot of unknowns in that space.
There are, but one of the great things about working on Webflow is you get great SEO. And by seeing what actually happens by getting great SEO, we've been able to build some features into our product that do drive the results into those LLMs. We allow people to modify LLMs.txt and host it directly on their websites today on our platform. We've partnered with folks like Cloudflare to actually drive some of that AI traffic to people's websites in an aggressive and sort of like very performant way. And we are really seeing that our customers are being able to influence what those AI search engines or those AI LLM chat engines are doing and how their brands show up there. We are in the process of getting ready for our user conference next week. So for the future selves of us that are going to be hearing about this after the conference, go watch the keynote because there's some really cool stuff coming there too.
And so is Is Webflow like a low code, no code type of environment?
It is. It can be a low code, no code environment. It is a drag and drop visual builder by default. But we also have ways to do custom code. We also have ways to bring code onto that visual environment. We have ways to integrate with products like GitHub to bring code sources into the website. And we even launched something recently called Webflow Cloud, which is the ability to bring code into Webflow and have us host it and run it for our customers directly.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun.
There's definitely been a huge evolution in website companies and platforms. Now, it looks like you've been there just under 3 years. How did you get the role at Webflow? I know, being a CTO is a tough job, as you know, and sometimes CTOs are blamed for everything, good, bad, or indifferent. And, last time I checked, it's pretty darn hard to get a job by just applying for online with an ad. How did you get your role at Webflow?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty lucky to sort of get approached by Webflow. I was at Shopify at the time. I was loving that role, really doing a lot of fun things in the world of e-commerce. But what I saw at Webflow is the ability to sort of change how everyone is available on the web, how everyone has presence on the web. So to be completely, totally transparent, like a recruiter reached out and I was like, that's interesting. I'm here in San Francisco. It's in San Francisco, although we have developers all over the world. But let me go find out what this is about. And I found a really compelling leadership team, a really compelling vision, a huge community of people that are out there using Webflow, some large number of customers growing incredibly fast. And I thought it'd be an interesting journey. One of the things that you mentioned, I've been through a lot of different companies. One of the things I'm always looking to do is figure out how can I take what I think I do best, which is build great engineering teams, build great technology teams, build great SaaS applications. I'm kind of a SaaS CTO, and apply it to different markets. When I joined Zing, I didn't know gaming, but I knew how to build highly scalable platforms. When I joined ServiceNow, I didn't really know workflows, but I understood how to take what I do best and apply it to workflows. I did the same thing at Slack. I did the same thing at Shopify for commerce, and now I'm doing the same thing here for web development. I do appreciate you saying that CTO is both a good and bad job because you get all the success and all the blame. But I feel like that's what motivates me. I love getting the weight of responsibility of that for a large community of entrepreneurs or commerce people or even people that are doing gaming, and knowing that that's there kind of makes me jump out of bed and say, how can I do this better today?
Awesome. I love it. What are some current cutting edge projects you're working on?
Yeah. We are currently working on a number of projects in terms of building up our scale. Webflow is growing incredibly fast. We have millions of websites that are on Webflow all the time. We have hundreds of people that are moving onto Webflow almost literally every hour. So the question that I'm always thinking about is looking at the architecture we've built, looking at how we've built that out over the past 5-7 years. How can we scale it to the next level? So what I'm always looking for, Steve, is trying to think about how do we do 10x? What if we didn't have millions of websites? What if we had 30 million websites? What if we didn't have hundreds of thousands of customers? What if we had millions of customers? So I'm always trying to figure out what is that next step function? What is that next X? So I'm looking at things on the back end that do that. We're looking at performant frameworks on the front end to do that. We're looking at ways to scale the team. We're looking at messaging buses. We're looking at AI technologies. We're looking at ways to integrate LLMs into the product. We've already done that, of course, over the past year and continuing to do more. But there's just so many areas around scale and growth that just really excite me.
Awesome. Well, and you mentioned one of your best talents is leading engineering teams. Tell us about the engineering team at Webflow and the work model you guys do and how you go about it.
Yeah, I think when I think about the best engineers, the ones that I've worked with over my career that I really think are just the rock stars I'm looking to work with again, I think they kind of have three properties. The number one is they love to work at scale. And by scale, I mean it's the scale of the internet, it's a scale of devices, it's a scale of the algorithm, it's a scale of the data. I love finding people who get excited by scale. The second thing I love is I love finding people who want to ship to production. I love people who want to get into the details and see their code live. I don't think there's any more dopamine hit on the planet than pushing that product out and thinking, in the next 5 minutes, 5 million people are going to see this. I mean, how cool is that? And then the third thing I always look for in my teams is I just don't tolerate the brilliant jerks. I really want to find people who want to work together, who really get excited about that. So I'm looking for people who want to, work at scale, ship to prod, and, don't work with assholes. Is probably the nice way of putting it.
I think that's why I became an entrepreneur and a CEO. is because life's too short to work with assholes, as you've said.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm with you there, man. So are you guys a fully remote team? Tell me more about those dynamics.
Yeah, we are a fully remote team. We are everywhere. We have an office here in San Francisco, but on a good day, 10 people will show up, or there'll be an offsite there. We kind of use it as a place to gather and run team meetings as opposed to a place that everyone has to go to all the time. So we're fully remote. We have people across the planet. We try and take pieces of functionality and co-locate them sort of in time zones. So I don't want people to be working across 10 time zones. I'd like them to think about working out 1 or 2 time zones on their teams. But we are fully remote, and we live in this world of staying in video almost all the time.
Gotcha. And engineers hate that. We're a fully remote company as well. And I'm like, come on, we don't get to see each other physically. So you got to at least be on video. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth.
Well, it's funny that the game I like to play when you first meet someone after you've been on video with them all the time is the how tall are you game, right? Because you've seen them, they're all like in the same Zoom boxes and everyone's the same height. And then you actually meet someone, you're like, oh, wow, you're taller than I expected, or wow, you're my height. So it's always kind of fun to play the how tall are you game when you meet people in person.
That is a good one. That is a good one. So, Allan, throughout the many companies you've worked with, throughout your ventures, what are some brutal lessons you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most brutal lesson I've learned as a CTO is, one, you have to be in the details. And what I mean by that is I am not the subject matter expert on every piece of code that we have. That's clearly not the case. But I have to be able to understand and go into the details when there is the need to do that. It's critically important for me to be able to go almost to anywhere in the code, to open up the GitHub repos, to dive in and understand what's happening in a way that I can be constructive, useful, and help guide the teams to get to that next scale. The other thing I think I learned early in my career, or now that I look back on it, maybe I didn't learn early enough in my career, was you have to hire people with the same mindset. You have to be really brutally tough in making sure that the people you hire are folks you can delegate to and will also get in the details on your behalf to make sure we build the right product. So for me, a lesson I've probably learned is I probably hired more people managers than I did technologists. And I probably should have hired technologists who were people managers earlier than I did.
I have found engineers often have a hard time relating to people who aren't engineers. So to your point, instead of getting a bunch of people managers, engineers that can manage, I'm with you. I've definitely seen that be more effective.
I think it also goes to something that, engineers want. They want to trust their leadership. And if you just think the leadership is sort of like the Dilbert cartoon guy, the pointy-haired manager type that comes in and quotes something that they read in an airline magazine, it's not going to earn the trust of the engineers. You have to be able to go in and have the tough architectural discussions. You have to be able to come up with different viewpoints. You have to be able to use your experience to help guide them, maybe correctly, maybe incorrectly, down to the next set of tasks. I think if you do that, you'll really earn the trust of the engineering team. And then when you delegate to them, they'll also understand what's happening and how they need to execute.
All great points. So
Thanks.
what's the toughest challenge that you're facing right now in your current role?
Well, I think everyone's sort of facing this challenge of what does AI mean for us? And here at Webflow, we are using AI in a couple different ways. We're embedding AI as a thread throughout the entire product space. We're trying to figure out ways to make every step of our product, how people are designing websites, building websites, optimizing the websites, finding different variants of the websites to do better conversion. All that's got to use AI. So one of my bigger challenges these days is just keeping up with the pace of what's going on and making sure that we're incorporating the right bits into the product as opposed to the latest shiny little object over in the corner. And then I think the second piece of that is really attracting talent. I really think my job at the end of the day is bringing the right gray matter into the building or into the virtual building, and then making sure they get assigned to the things that excite them. Because if I can do that properly, almost everything else goes away. And if I can get the right people in the building that are, directionally aligned, understand the strategy, are excited about what we're building, and get them excited to work on where we're going next, I think my job's kind of done.
So you mentioned the be careful of the shiny objects. And last month, MIT released a report that 95% of generative AI pilots at companies are failing, and their definition of failing was negative ROI.
Yeah. That report definitely made the rounds.
And so why do you think that is? And, part of it is chasing the shiny object. But as a technology leader, How do you make sure your company doesn't make that list?
Yeah. That hasn't been my experience, is sort of the bottom line answer. I think there probably are lots of companies out there that are using the AI technology in a way that maybe it wasn't intended to be used, or maybe they're using it in a way that they're expecting and then a miracle happens, sort of thought bubble shows up at the end of typing that chat GPT prompt. But that's not how we're looking at it. We're looking at it by enabling our engineers. We give them all ChatGPT Enterprise. We give them all Cursor licenses. We give everyone augment code. We've written workflows into our process that automatically generate PR descriptions. We have a process that automatically looks at every PR going into our repo and looks at our risk score, low, medium, high, and then determines how can we mitigate that risk before we go to deploy. We have things that we're using that really are being incredibly successful. And maybe it's because we're engineers applying AI as opposed to other groups applying AI where they might not be as successful because they don't understand, again, they don't understand the details of what's happening. They don't understand how the LMs are constructed. They don't understand how to use a RAG in the right way. And what that ends up being is they sort of expect it to be, miracle sauce, and it's not. It has to be applied just like every other tool. And our results are pretty amazing. Our cursor usage is up over 80% month over month. Our cycle time in terms of how quickly ideas go from, a Jira into production is down, 21%. Our deployment rates are continuing to rise, 10%, 15% month over month. And all that, our change failure rate, which is the number of times we pushed to prod, then had to roll something back, it actually remains below 2%. So we're seeing higher productivity, more use of AI, and engineers really digging in and leaning into this being yet another really hefty tool in their tool belt. So while I read the MIT study, like I think everyone else did, wasn't my experience.
So you just cited some really specific engineering metrics.
Yeah.
How do you capture those, and how have you done that throughout organizations? Are you using tools like Pluralsight Flow or others? Because you gave very good specific engineering details there.
Yeah, we use a variety of tools that either look at the space metric framework or the core 4 metric framework. The ones we're currently using, we're using a tool called Swarmia right now, and we're also using a tool called DX. DX is helping us do engineering sentiment surveys and looking at some metrics across our tool set. And what these tools essentially do is they either tie into our deploy pipelines, or they either dig into our deploy pipelines, or they look at our GitHub workflows via webhook, and they give us very specific metrics about what teams are doing. We don't look at individual contributors and what individuals are doing. I think it's a little too big brothery, but we're looking at what teams are doing in aggregate. And we're trying to make sure that the teams themselves are moving at the pace we expect. And if not, we ask why. One of the things that just happened recently, to give you an example, we had a team where their PR rate wasn't what we thought it should be. And when I poked into it and said, tell me why that's happening, it turned out like one person was out on maternity, another person was taking a vacation, another person, it was all completely legit reasons. But we wanted to make sure we understood why the metrics were telling us a particular story and how we could help drive that better going forward. So there's lots of ways to take these metrics in, use them in a way that is very, very helpful to engineering productivity.
So when you're leading engineering organizations, how are you evaluating decisions on what you're building with in-house teams, what you're outsourcing, what you might do through staff augmentation? How do you evaluate those type of decisions?
Yeah, we're always looking at how to resource teams properly. We generally do staff full-time engineers on the teams. However, there are times when projects do require staff augmentation or a contractor in a specific subject area that maybe we need to dive into for a short period of time and don't need for a longer period of time. So we're much more of a mindset that we want the expertise in-house, but we'll augment for short bursts over time. That's how we think about it.
And so you made a mention of this earlier of functions by time zones. I'm guessing that's how you manage a global engineering team.
Yes, that's right. We have folks in Europe, we have folks in Asia, we have folks in Latin America, across Canada and the US. And for each of the engineering functions, we do like them to be more or less time zone adjacent. I wouldn't want a team to have someone in Dublin, someone in the West Coast, and someone in Singapore. That would be particularly hard, perhaps, to have a high productive team when there's always somebody asleep or always somebody that's not able to do the PR review or do the consulting or do the pair programming, whatever it is where you really need people to be sort of awake and working at the same time. Generally speaking, I want teams to have most of the team members. So at least 4 to 5 hours of overlap on a given day.
I have certainly found, and once again, I like how you positioned it by function, because in the current development environment, teams aren't working in silos. There's constant collaboration that's needed. I have not seen good success when you're in the midst of development of only having an hour or 2 hour time zone overlap. It's not enough time for collaboration. It could leave people on shifts unproductive because they can't get the answers they need.
That's right. One of the things we've also done, which I think is super effective, is for teams that are really driving towards goals, teams that are really working together. Maybe they're in a crunch time. They're trying to get a product out of beta into GA. They're trying to get a product into beta. We'll let them come together. And they often do come together here in San Francisco, although we have had people come together across US and Canada and even Europe, had people get together in Portugal. I really think of these as times to burst together, to really sit down. And the goal of these meetings is not social. I mean, of course, there's social aspects of it, but the goal of the meeting is to deliver. So we really think about allowing our teams to have time together, to have that face time, to have that quick iteration time where they'll essentially huddle in a room together, work through a particular problem, maybe spend 4 or 5 days together. Of course, there'll be some social time and some happy hours, some things along that. But we really want to make sure that if teams are coming together in person, they're doing it with purpose and intention to deliver something. And I think that is so effective because then they all leave super proud of, look what we all just did together. And it is really an amazing thing to watch.
And I think remote work is a wonderful thing. But when you get to spend some time in person with your team and you get to not have the business component of that too and get to know more personally and spend some time, it does help create that bond. And so I think that's great
Absolutely.
how you guys make a point to do that regularly.
Absolutely true.
Well,
We
Allan,
think it's
thank
super
you.
important for people to know each other that way.
Allan, thank you for getting uncensored with us today. You've definitely had an impressive career at some amazing companies. It'd be exciting to see how you continue to evolve things at Webflow. Before we wrap, what's some no BS advice you have for other tech leaders, CTOs out there who are trying to build, scale, or just survive?
I'll give one no BS piece of advice. That no BS piece of advice is if there's a member on your team that you think you need to change roles or manage out or have a performance conversation with, everyone else on the team has known about it for months and you're already too late. So as a leader, once that is filtered up to you, I think it is time to work with that individual or that manager or that director and think about what the go forward plan is for those people. It is imperative as a leader that you understand where the strong members are on the team and where the not so strong members are on the team and be able to take action and make sure the team is successful.
Awesome. Great advice, Allan. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, we'll just tell your competitors about it. They could it's probably the edge they need. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.